This time I have a Sony EVC100 Hi8 deck. This one was shipped in from a viewer. Complaint on this one is it's got a loading problem. So before we even start on this, I'm going to take it apart, do a visual inspection, and we'll see whether we can get this one working. Let's check it out. Oh, look. Christmas gift wrapping. I got a unit shipped in to be looked at. This one is a EVC100 Hi8 deck that has a problem. And this one here was shipped in by the owner, who declared it being worth a lot of money, and it ended up costing him a lot of tax to bring it in. I've been through this before. When people are shipping things in to be repaired, there is no declared value on items coming in because they're not staying here. If you put a declared value on anything over $20 that's being shipped in for repair or whatever, what happens is it's treated as if I'm buying this thing off eBay or something. It's treated as a sale, and it triggers a whole bunch of charges such as GST and PST, which is 12% on the value after converted to Canadian dollars, plus other import fees such as broker charges and stuff, and paperwork processing charges. If they're declared less than $20, which a broken unit certainly is, there's no charges. It's a big headache for everyone, because I go to the post office to pick something up and then they tell me, oh, you got to pay us 70 bucks to get it out of jail, basically. So then I got to go back and collect the money from the owner, go to the bank, get cash, and then go and pay cash to collect something that may or may not even be repairable. The complaint on this one is it won't load tapes completely. So before I even put a tape in, I'm going to power it up and we'll observe what it's doing. Before I'll open it up and we'll observe what it's doing before I even try to load a tape. See why it's not working. Sounds like a mechanical problem. Screws are loose, so obviously somebody's been into this unit before because the screws aren't tight. Also, you can see a little bit of a gap here at the front. Oh, there's a tape in it already. Okay. Could be just a gummed up mechanism. Will it turn on? Okay, it's on. Of course, it did not retract the tape back into the cassette when it ejected, so we ended up with some tape spillage, but try not to damage it any more than it is. Use a standard bit from a standard size screwdriver. This is like a standard bit, fits the edge of the tape. I'll try my own tape in so I won't damage this tape up any more than it is. We'll see why this is not working properly. Belt is not broken because I can see when I turn the capstan shaft, I can see the cats howling at the door. I can see movement of the tape transport. The pendulum gear there is trying to move, but I don't see it turning anything. But again, mode switch dirty can certainly cause that. Let me grab another tape. I just want to see what it does when I try to load a tape. Okay, so it's sticking. Front loading mechanism appears to be damaged too. See, this is kind of crooked. So we got a couple of different faults in this machine. release my tape. Okay, this is loose. Someone's taken this apart to get a tape out, more than likely. What else have they damaged down here? Hopefully nothing. Let's just see if I can get this to eject. If I turn the loading gear here by hand, I should be able to raise this up. That might have just been crooked because this piece was not attached properly, because someone took it apart. This just has to clip together. There's a couple of clips in the back here on the front. But it should not just lift up like this. It should be locked in place. I wonder if there's a plastic clip that's broken. It snaps together like that. You put it in place, and then you push it down, and then you slide it back, and it goes under these little catches here. There's one catch there, and another catch is on this side. That's what holds the front loading mechanism together on these units. These plastic pieces, though, are going to be getting really quite brittle, so I don't want to take them apart if I don't have to. But what does lock in is there's a couple pegs here that have to lock in. You see these little pegs? There's one here, and then there's one on this side over here. These little pegs have to lock in, little pins. They hold it in place, and then these clips here, this is what holds it from sliding forward. And to open it up, basically what you do is you push down on both of these clips and then pull the mechanism forward a bit, and then you can lift it out. Otherwise it's locked in place. It should stay like that. So that's back together. Let's deal with the gummed up mechanism, and that's what it's going to be. It's going to be gummed up guides and so forth, probably on the bottom of the chassis. Plastic's already breaking here, so you got to be careful with these because they get brittle after they're a couple years old. The plastic is really quite brittle on them, so you got to be extra careful because they will not forgive and they will break apart. Okay, these units here were never designed to last as long as they have, and the fact that these things are actually even still working is a miracle, or even attempting to work is a miracle. Alright, let's try that front loading mechanism again and just see what happens, see whether it'll load the tape. I know it's not threading, but we're going to start somewhere, see if it'll eject and load the tape properly this time. See, this guide is okay. Now the guide went into place. So maybe it's going to work. Just try my monitor here. And I have a picture. Excellent. So this one looks like it's working okay. I got to do more work on this, so I do have to lubricate this mechanism because it is sticking a bit. So I got to lube the guides to make sure that they don't stick. The reason that they're not sticking right now is that I just wiped some of the dried grease away with my finger when I went down in here and wiped it. So we got to take the grease out and re-lube it, but I'm going to pull the mechanism apart, and we'll clean the mode switch on it as well. And this one should be good to go. One thing I've never tried doing, I should try it sometime. The camera I'm using right now, it has a ProRes mode. I've never tried it, but I should try that sometime. It's still 1080, right? It's still a 1080 mode, but it bumps the encoder from 28 to 50 megabits for ProRes 1080. I should try that sometime and see how it see if we notice any noticeable difference in the picture. Anyway, to get the chassis out, I just kind of release the front cabinet here. I have to remove these 3 screws that are marked with arrows, and then I can lift the mechanism out. Again, these screws are loose, so somebody's been into here because they don't leave the factory finger tight like that, like 2 fingers removes the screws. So they don't leave the factory like that. Somebody's had their fingers in here. The guy that sent me this, he bought it off eBay. Of course, the place where everybody goes to get ripped off, right? I'll do the 2-inch connectors. Remove my favorite connectors of all times. Okay, I want to fix up this connection here. They're known trouble spots. And the mode switch is under here. I should clean that if I can get at it. I should be able to get into that. We'll just take off this board here. Undo this one. Undo these 2 plugs, and that will remove the servo board completely so that I can get it out of the way. Mode switch is right down here, and I can just give that a shot of cleaner without ripping the whole thing apart. Sparingly is the word here. You don't want to spray too much in because you don't want this getting everywhere. just a little bit into the switch itself. I mean, a minute amount is all it needs. As I say, you don't want it going everywhere else. I've had to deal with people that have got in there and put half a can of cleaner in, and they have overspray everywhere. Gotta clean the tracks here, and we'll re-lube those. Get that black grease and dirt. It's mostly dirt because you get too much grease on, and you get dirt that sticks to the grease or oil, and that causes things to get gummed up. This doesn't turn to cement like on some. It does, however, attract dirt, so you want to put a minimal amount of lubricant on. And that's a big mistake some people make, is they just put way too much in there. It's usually the top side too, because dirt settles in from the top, not so much from the bottom. But I mean, you can see, if you look on here, you can see dust and dirt and stuff that's gotten in. Because every time you put a tape in, right, there's dust and dirt on there. It all collects in here and gets gummed up on all these parts. So, it looks like this is awful oily in here, like somebody's gone in here and sprayed something. It almost looks like somebody sprayed some WD-40 or something here, because there's an awful lot of oil. You can see the shine on everything. Or it's been awful hot, and the lubricant has melted. I'm going to manually operate the motor here and load the guide so that I can get in behind it and clean it. So I just got to expose the connections, and we'll turn the power supply on and turn it down to about 3 volts or so. 2.8, that should be enough. I just want to load the mechanism. Okay. Mechanism is loaded, that way I can get into the behind and clean the tracks in behind here. Clean what I couldn't get before. As you can see, a fair bit of dirt and old grease out of here. I'll get some of my newer Molly coat, and we'll get that in here and make sure. I also want to check to make sure that these pins aren't coming loose, because these pins have a tendency to work their way loose, and when they do, the guide can come disconnected from the rest of the mechanism. They look to be okay at this point, but I probably will put a drop of glue onto the top of this little pin here. This is what works their way loose, these little pins. They're all the way down, but they work their way up. And when this works its way up, this will come disconnected from the linkage, and the other one's on this side over here. So we want to make sure that we put a bit of, a little bit of cyanoacrylic or crazy glue on the actual top there. Look in here, you see, see this? Look at those. That's what I'm getting at. This is all gummed up. Like somebody's gone in here and just been spraying something in. Picture looks to be okay at this point. And the unit's playing, so there's no other electrical problems that I can see, because the picture looked good off of it. So I think the main problem with this one was somebody took it apart and didn't put that front loader back together properly, so the tape wasn't going down level, and that was causing it to jam when it tried to thread. The reels weren't becoming unlocked, because on the back of the machine here, there's a little tab a little button that gets pressed. It's right down here. See it down there or not, but we'll throw some light in there so you can see what I'm referring to. It's a little black lever right there, and what that does is that when the tape goes down, that pulls this lever back, or this release, it pulls it back like that. So if the tape isn't dropping properly, it will not open this, and that's what unlocks the reels so that it won't thread. So I think the big problem on this was this mechanism was not put back together properly. Somebody had it apart, or somehow it got popped apart on this side. That's why this part of the mechanism was going in at an angle, or coming out at an angle, because it wasn't tracking properly due to the top plate not being installed. I think that was probably the biggest fault on this one. And then of course to clean out the track here, I'll get some grease in there. We'll throw this one back together, and hopefully that's all that's wrong with it, and it can go back, and the guy that owns it can count himself lucky that he got something that was fixable. Because a lot of the stuff that's sold on eBay, unfortunately, is not. There's a lot of stuff out there that people sell that is beyond repair. And I've seen it here on this channel. I've seen stuff that people have bought on eBay that has not been repairable. So as usual, I'm going to use PG641 Moly Coat grease. I'm down to my last 3 packets of this. I don't know what I'm going to do when I run out. I guess I'll have to find some other type of grease to use, because I won't be buying a big tube of this stuff. It's too bloody expensive for what I get or how much I need. When I left the business, I grabbed, these used to come as a kit when you ordered a pinch roller kit for a Mitsubishi VCR. This is what was used to lubricate the mechanism, because the original grease was that black crap that turned to glue. So we would strip it off, but typically to do a VCR you'd use about maybe a quarter of what was in here to do one VCR. So there was always extra, so I would not use it all. I'd keep it, and every time I ordered one I'd just keep another pack, and at one point I had about, I don't know, about 10 or 15 of these. Over the years I've been using them. I'm down to the last 3, so got to make it last for a little while anyway, because I mean there's other greases out there that are available, lithium type greases, so it's not that I can't get it, it's just that the stuff works pretty good. So I'm just going to put a little bit around the rails here, and then we'll work the mechanism back and forth a few times, and that will work its way in on both sides. Just put a little bit in here, scrape some onto the back. Again, I don't want to put too much in, because too much grease will just attract more dirt. So there's the right amount, and there's too much. And there's too little, but too little usually won't be a problem. Because this is not a high friction point. Alright, unload the motor here. Unload it again. Alright, I think it's time to put this together, and we'll see what happens. So I'll start by reattaching the circuit board. One thing I didn't take apart, which I should, is this connector here. Just release that one, just to reseat it. Pop that out. Reseat this one. And then plug it back on. like that. At least this unit's not full of those bloody surface mounted caps that give us so much trouble. This one's got regular caps on it, so we don't have the issues that plagued all the cameras or some of the other decks that Sony had. Like I don't think there's any surface mounted on this. Even the preamp doesn't have them. That's one of the reasons why these decks have lasted like they have, because, well, they don't have the problems, they don't have the trouble caps that the other ones with all those surface mounted caps had, because they were just dreadful. Put that back on, and then we can throw the 3 screws in that hold the chassis together. Okay, got the unit plugged in. First test. Okay, it's threaded. Play. Got a picture. Forward search. Play. Reverse search. Play. We got sound. Looking pretty good to me. We'll check the guides and see if the guides are in any way loose. They're not. Guides are not loose. Nope. So our tape path is good. No problem there. I think I will put a bit of glue on top of the pins that lock the guides into the mechanism, just to prevent them from working their way loose at some future time. So what I'm going to put a drop of glue right on top here, right here on this one, and the other one over here. The little pin that goes through it that holds it in place. We're just going to put a bit of crazy glue, or whatever. We call it crazy glue here. Super glue. Actually, I don't remember the last time I bought actual crazy glue. It's been years since I actually purchased the brand crazy glue. This is just the standard super glue. This is what it is. If you guys want to see what the glue is for people in other countries, it's cyanacrylic, I guess, cyanoacrylic, ethyl 2 cyanoacrylic glue, super glue is what we refer to it as. Same stuff that the forensic guys use to pick up latent fingerprints off of things. They put it in a cabinet and they fume it, heat up a little dish full of this, and let the fumes of it attach to latent fingerprints. That's how they catch them all, according to forensic files anyway. Good to have something to apply this with. Just got a bit drop on the end of the screwdriver, and then we'll just drop it in the hole there and let it soak in. And I'll do another little bit on the next one on the other side. Right there. The nice thing about these little tubes that I buy for, I think they're $2 at the dollar store, is that, well, this stuff here, once you open it, it pretty much dries up within a few weeks. So once you start using it, you gotta kind of use it up, or it's just gonna dry up. And the same goes for the other tubes that cost much more. Once you open it, the clock is ticking, as they say. You got to use it up or it's just going to go bad. So might as well get the cheapest stuff we can find. Looks like there's oil on here too. Might as well get the cheapest stuff one can find. I'm going to take that little foam pad out, just because that little head cleaning pad is going to be deteriorating, and it's probably putting more crap onto the heads than it's actually removing. So we'll just remove it. I can actually take the whole thing out now. Just take the wheel off, and it won't make contact with anything. So what happens is this little foam wheel, what it's designed to do is to clean the head. Well, the problem is, when they get to be this old, is that the rubber that they're made out of, or whatever they make them out of, starts to deteriorate. Plus they get dirty, but it starts to deteriorate, and it actually starts to leave a residue behind. So when these units are this age, it's always a good idea just to remove it. I just take it off the end of the little roller there. That doesn't make contact with the head, right? It's all the way in. It's still sitting about 1 millimeter away from the head. So as again, it's a part that we can't really get these days, and they didn't do that good a job to begin with. But if you've got tapes that are shedding oxide, or shedding the tape surface that bad that you got to clean the heads every 5 minutes, that's not going to be what cleans the heads, believe me. When the tapes start to go bad and the heads start to contaminate every time you play a tape, and I've got some tapes on that. I did videos on Sony tape was garbage. But when the tapes get bad and they start to put more contamination on the heads, then these aren't going to do a job anyway. Even when they're new, the cleaning wheels aren't going to do anything. What all the cleaning wheel does is would have done was take off a little bit of surface debris, smoke and dust and stuff, but that's about all they ever did when they were new. Once they got old, they started to leave more behind. The best one I ever saw was the one on the EVS500 and the EVS7000, which was a wheel about that big around, and it was like solid little plastic bristles, and when it made contact, it was like a brush. It would spin. It worked great. It was fantastic. I still use it on my EVS7000. When I play a tape on that, if the heads clog up, I reach in and I flip the little wheel down against the head while it's spinning, and it'll clear the head while it's playing. Anyway, this one is done. The the guy that owns this one's going to be pretty happy, I think, to get his little Hi8 deck back. And these are nice little units. Right? If you get your chance to get one of these that works, I would say spend the money to get one of these that works, as opposed to buying a Hi8 camera to transfer your tapes. Because all the Hi8 cameras, well, not all of them, the modern ones were okay, but the early Hi8 cameras, they had the capacitor issue on them. The later Hi8 cameras didn't, and the digital 8 cameras that can play back analog, they didn't have capacitor issues either. But if you're looking for a machine to transfer tapes, if you can find one of these machines, I would say grab one, because these were actually a pretty good little machine. And I would love to have one of these in my collection of machines, just because I collect this oddball stuff. And I think this is one machine worth having. EVC100 Sony Hi8 deck. Before I go, I figured I would just check the guy's tape that was in here. Looks like he's got Flight 5, but I looked at this tape and it looks like there might be contamination on the tape here. So this might not end well for this tape. Let's just see if it'll actually load, or whether it's gonna stop the drum from turning. Yeah, this tape that he's got in here is I probably just contaminated the heads. At least it'll eject it. But this tape that he's got is damaged, unfortunately. We'll see how far the damage is on the tape. Certainly damaged at that point. Maybe that section can be trimmed out. Now that might have been where he put it in the machine, and the machine being all full of oil and crap. You can see it. You can see the surface of the tape here. You see this? Right. See the tape? Oh, it's stuck? Oh yeah, look at the tape here. I might be able to fix it. Oh man. Yeah, this tape. Look at this tape. It's like, yeah, this tape's shot. See the surface of the tape? Well, at least that much of the tape is bad. I don't know whether this is his tape or whether that tape was in the machine when he got it, but that portion of the tape is bad. I'm going to cut that section out and just splice it, because that can't go over the heads. If that goes over the heads, we're going to have a problem. I can even see down here there's some issue, but I'm just going to trim that section of the tape out. We'll see if this tape plays. Good thing I checked that, because that's all I would need, is to send it back and have him say, yeah, I tried to play my tape and it ate the tape right away. Well, now we know why it would eat the tape. Gee, bad tape. This is what's on his tape. Can't really see much. It looks like the iris was wide open. So the you can see the wing, top of the wing, right? But it looks like all snow. But there's not a heck of a lot to see on this tape. But at least the tape can be played. But it's definitely flying in an airplane. Don't hear any sound on it. But that's the section after the bad part. And at least it can be played now. But it looks to be very overexposed. But the only part that's in proper exposure is the bottom of the wing. Oh, there we go. It's still really washed out. So I think whoever shot this, the camera wasn't working properly, or had the backlight control or something turned on. But it's very overexposed. But at least he's got his tape back. I'll have to recommend that if he's going to run this tape, I wouldn't run this damaged tape through this machine more than once. Like, run it through, get it digitized, and throw it out. And I certainly wouldn't recommend running it repeatedly, because with the damaged section there, it's not going to damage the heads, but there's always a chance that when it's rewinding, it could bind up and jam. Because of the way these units rewind, the pinch roller and capstan actually pulls the tape out, and it's then at low tension is pulled over the head, but the splice can actually catch on the tape guide, and then you end up with a bunch of tape wrapped around the inside of the machine, because it would stop it from taking it up, but the capstan would still spool it for a few seconds until it figured out that the reel had stopped. So my recommendation is, if you ever have a 8mm tape that you had to splice, try to run it in one pass and recover it if you have to splice it, because it's rewind that usually causes problems on this type of chassis anyway. Anyway, this one's done. His tape is fixed so that he can try to recover what's on there. So you can see all the damage that was on this tape. I had to cut off a few feet. But it's either that or no content at all, right? Anyway, thanks for watching.